My name is Agnes Barnett, and I'm 68 years old. I'm sitting here in my kitchen in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm watching the snow fall. It's a rare sight for us here, but it feels like a little Christmas miracle dusting everything in white. It's Christmas Eve. My kitchen is warm, and it smells like, well, it smells like my mother's house. It smells of cinnamon and cloves and the slow roasting of the turkey I've already got in the oven. For 35 years, this day, this meal has been my domain, my pride. People ask me all the time, Agnes, why do you do it? Why go to all this trouble? Why don't you just let us cater? They just don't get it. They see the work, but they don't see the point. When I'm in this kitchen with flour on my apron and my old wooden rolling pin in my hand, I'm not just making food. Anyone can buy food. I'm continuing a story. This dinner is more than just a meal. It's a legacy. And the heart of that legacy, the part that holds it all together, is my late mother's pies. I can still see her hands dusted with flour, teaching me how to crimp the edges of the crust. I must have been, maybe 10 years old. My hands were clumsy, and I kept tearing the dough. I was so frustrated. My mother, she just smiled. She told me, Agnes, you don't just roll the dough, you listen to it. It'll tell you what it needs. It took me years to understand what that meant. It means you put your time into it. You put your love into it. You can't rush it, and you can't force it. That's the part people forget these days. Time is the most expensive ingredient. I remember one year, I must have been about 15, I decided I was grown up enough to make the apple pie all by myself. What a disaster. I forgot the sugar in the filling, and the crust, my goodness, that crust was like a rock. I was so upset. I cried. My mother, she came in. She didn't scold me. She just looked at that hard, pale pie. Then she cut a slice, put it on a plate, and sat down at this very table. She took a bite and chewed for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she smiled and said, well, it's not going to win any prizes, but you made it, Agnes, and we're going to eat it. And she did. She ate the entire slice. That was the lesson. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up. It was about the effort. It was about making something with your own two hands for the people you love. That's why I do this. It's not a chore. It's a joy. When my daughter, Eliza, flies in from Denver, she's a lawyer now, so busy, and takes that first bite of my sage stuffing, the one she's loved since she was a little girl, well, that look on her face is all the thanks I need. And my youngest, Max, he's driving up from Tucson. He's a high school teacher, and I'm so proud of him. He'll walk in, give me a big hug, and then, when he thinks I'm not looking, he'll sneak into the kitchen to steal a hot roll, just like he did when he was 6. That's the fuel. That's the joy. We've lived in this house for 40 years. This neighborhood in Scottsdale, it values things. People take pride in their homes, in their families. We're the kind of neighbors who still bring over a casserole, who wave to each other. Tradition matters here. It's not about being old-fashioned. It's about having roots. And the roots of the Barnett family are planted right here at this dining room table. So yes, I'm a little tired. I won't lie. My back aches a bit, and my hands aren't as steady as they used to be, but it's a good tired. It's the satisfying exhaustion that comes from a day spent doing something that matters. And then there's my son, Eddie, my firstborn. He lives just across town with his wife, Tara, and their 2 children, my grandchildren, Dylan and Maya. I love them all dearly, but for the past few years, well, that's the one part of the day that brings a different kind of tired. The kind that's not so good. It's the part that makes me weary right down to my bones. For 3 years now, I've smiled. For 3 years, I've said, oh, how lovely, dear, when Tara walks in. For 3 years, I've watched her place that box on my kitchen counter right next to the pies I spent all morning baking. A store-bought dessert. Every year, the same frozen cheesecake from the local grocery store. I've held my tongue. I've told myself it doesn't matter, that it's the thought that counts. But does it? What is the thought? That my effort isn't necessary? That a cheap frozen block is the same as my mother's legacy? This year feels different. Maybe it's because I'm 68. Maybe it's because the world feels like it's spinning faster and faster, trying to erase all the things that take time. Or maybe I'm just tired of pretending. That feeling standing in your own home, invisible after all that work. It's just heartbreaking. Have you ever poured your heart and soul into a tradition just to have it dismissed by someone with a store-bought $8.99 contribution? Tell me, where are you all watching from today? Drop your city and state in the comments below. I'd love to see where this story is reaching. Christmas Day arrives. The house is filled with noise and laughter. My daughter, Eliza, is here, and my son, Max. They are a comfort. They help in the kitchen, they tell me about their lives, and they genuinely seem happy to be home. They eat my cooking with honest-to-goodness joy. Then, around 4 o'clock, the doorbell rings again. My heart does a little dip. It's a feeling I'm ashamed of. You should be nothing but happy to see your son and his family, Eddie and Tara. They come in with a blast of cold air, the kids, Dylan and Maya, running ahead to find their cousins. "Merry Christmas, Mom," Eddie says, giving me a one-armed hug. "Merry Christmas," Agnes, Tara says, smiling. She's holding a square, white box from the grocery store. "Ah," I say, and my voice sounds thin, even to my own ears. There it is. The first year she brought it, I genuinely thought it was a one-time mistake. Oh, I was at the store, and I just grabbed this, in case you didn't have time to bake. An add-on. A contribution. I smiled, I said thank you, and I put it in the freezer, and we never ate it. The second year, she brought the same one. I thought, well, she's a busy working mom. She's just trying to help. She doesn't understand. I smiled, said thank you, and we cut a few polite slices after my own pies were finished. The third year, I realized this wasn't an accident. This was a statement. And now, here we are. The fourth year. She holds it out to me. The same frozen cheesecake in the same plastic-domed container. I can see the bright orange $8.99 price sticker still stuck to the side of the cardboard. She hasn't even bothered to peel it off. "Merry Christmas, Tara." "You really shouldn't have," I say. The words just come out automatically. They're the armor we women learn to wear. "Oh, it's nothing, Agnes. Everyone loves cheesecake, right?" she says, brushing past me to set it on my kitchen counter. And there it is. The $8.99 still half-frozen box, sitting right next to my mother's apple pie, the one I was up late last night peeling apples for. It sits next to my grandmother's pecan pie, the one with the crust I made this morning from scratch, with real butter and lard, the way she taught me. I look at that box. Then I look around my kitchen. The turkey has been in the oven since 6 o'clock this morning. I got up in the dark to baste it, to make sure it would be moist and perfect. The mashed potatoes, my mashed potatoes, are waiting on the stove. I peeled 10 pounds of potatoes by hand yesterday. My knuckles are still aching from it. They're made with real cream, real butter, and a dash of nutmeg. They are not from a box. The fresh, yeasted rolls are rising in a warm spot by the oven, under a clean linen towel. I kneaded that dough twice, once last night and once this afternoon, so they would be perfectly fluffy. I've made green bean casserole, not with the canned soup, but with a homemade cream of mushroom I made on Monday. The sage and onion stuffing is my father's recipe. I dried the bread myself. This meal is a 4-day process. It is a labor of love. And sitting on the counter, like an equal, is an $8.99 frozen dessert in a plastic hat. We sit down to dinner, and as always, the food is wonderful. My children, Eliza and Max, they rave. Mom, this is the best stuffing ever. Agnes, this turkey is incredible. Even the grandkids are eating the green beans. Tara, I notice, just picks. She moves the food around on her plate. She eats a roll. She compliments the wine. Finally, the meal is over. The table is a happy mess of empty plates and laughter. I stand up like I do every year, and I start to clear the plates. All right, I say with a smile. Everyone relax for a bit, and I'll get the coffee on, and we can have dessert. Before I can even take a step, Tara is on her feet. Oh, let's have my cheesecake first, she says, her voice bright and loud, before we all get too full from those heavy pies. Heavy. She called them heavy. My mother's pies. My grandmother's pies. My legacy. She called it heavy. And she's already moving. She's in my kitchen. She's grabbing my good dessert plates, the ones I only use on Christmas. She's taking my good silver cake server out of the drawer. I'm standing there, holding 2 dinner plates, and I'm frozen. I'm invisible. She is in my space, taking over my job, and serving her store-bought, price sticker still on it, dessert. First, she's setting the pace. She's taking the spotlight. She's making it seem like her contribution is the main event, and mine is just the old, heavy leftovers. And I look at my son. I look at Eddie. He's sitting at the head of the table, laughing at something Max said. He sees his wife get up. He watches her go to the kitchen. He watches her start serving this thing. He doesn't say, hang on, Tara, let's wait for Mom. He doesn't say, actually, honey, I'm really looking forward to Mom's apple pie. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't even see me. He doesn't see the look on my face. He doesn't see that I've stopped, that I'm holding my breath, that I'm being erased right in front of him. He just holds out his plate. Tara puts a slice of her still slightly frozen cheesecake on it. It's so cold the fork probably can't go through it. And Eddie looks at her, and he smiles. He says, oh, this looks great, honey. Thanks. Honey. He called her honey, and he ate her cheap frozen cake, while my mother's pies sat on the counter, warming up, waiting to be seen. This is the hurt. It's not the cheesecake. It's the disrespect. It's the lack of appreciation. But more than anything, it's my own son, my firstborn, watching it happen. It's him choosing peace with his wife over respect for his mother. It's the message he sends, loud and clear, without saying a single word. You don't matter as much. And I'm standing there in the middle of my own dining room on my favorite day of the year, and I have never felt so alone. I'm just standing there. I don't know how long. I'm holding my breath, and I can feel a hot, prickly feeling behind my eyes. Mom. I turn. It's my daughter, Eliza. She's looking at me, her brow furrowed with concern. She saw it. She saw the whole thing. Are you all right? She asks, her voice low. I let out the breath I was holding. It comes out shaky. Yes, dear. Of course. Just tired, I suppose. Eliza knows it's more than that. She gives me a look, the one that says, we'll talk later. I'm on your side. And then my son, Max, God bless him, he stands up. He's got a big booming voice, and he uses it. All right, that was just the appetizer. Now, where are the real desserts? Mom, I've been driving for 3 hours thinking about your pecan pie. Don't tell me I'm too late. He's a good boy, my Max. He's trying to fix it. He's trying to remind the room what's important. And just like that, the spell is broken. I put on my smile again, the real one this time. Of course, sweetheart. It's right here. I go to the counter. I move Tara's half-eaten, frozen block to the side, and I pick up the pies. my mother's apple pie, and my grandmother's pecan. I bring them to the table. I get clean plates. I get the good forks. I pour coffee. And the mood in the room, it shifts. Max takes a huge bite of the pecan pie, and he closes his eyes. Oh my goodness. Mom, this is unbelievable. Eliza is eating the apple pie. She just nods, her mouth full. Better than last year, if that's even possible, she says. Even Eddie, my Eddie, takes a slice of the apple. He'd finished Tara's, of course, but he's my son. He can't resist my pie. Wow, Mom, he says, this is great. And I feel it. I feel the warmth coming back. This is what it's about. This is the tradition. This is the love. I'm watching my children, my grown-up children, be happy. And for a minute, I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm home. Tara has been quiet this whole time. She didn't take a slice of my pie. She's just been sitting there, sipping her coffee, watching us. I see her watching Max take his second slice. Then she lets out a little laugh. It's not a nice laugh. It's high and it's brittle. My goodness, she says, loud enough for the whole table to hear. You all are really packing it away. Eliza looks up, a little confused. Well, yeah, Tara, it's Mom's pie. It's the best part of Christmas. And that's when it happened. That's the moment that changed everything. Tara turns her smile on Eliza. But it's not a real smile. It's a tight little mask. Oh, I know, she says, waving her hand. Agnes, you make great food. We all know that. She pauses, and she looks around the table like she's about to let us all in on a big, important secret. But honestly, she says, people just want something lighter these days. Don't you think? Nobody says anything. And then she delivers the final blow. And besides, she sighs like she's so tired. Homemade food is just so much work. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. So much work. She said it with a little laugh, as if work was a four-letter word, as if work was a stupid thing to do, as if work was beneath her. And in that 1 second, with those 4 words, she didn't just dismiss my pies. She dismissed me. She dismissed my 35 years of getting up at dawn. She dismissed my mother and my grandmother. She dismissed the love, the time, the effort, the joy I put into this. She took my entire life's work, my legacy, and she called it a waste of time. She was saying I was old. I was obsolete. I was a fool in my kitchen, working my aching hands for nothing. I looked at her. I really looked at HER. And I finally saw her. This wasn't a busy, working mom. This wasn't someone who was just trying to help. This was a woman who had contempt. Contempt for me and contempt for the very idea of what I do. And then I looked at my son. I looked at Eddie. He was staring at his plate. He had heard it. He had heard his wife call his mother's love too much work. And he was saying nothing. He was silent. He was letting it happen. And in that instant, the hurt just stopped. It was like a faucet being twisted hard to the right. The pain, the sadness, the feeling of being invisible, it was gone. And in its place, something very, very cold and very, very clear settled in. It wasn't anger. Anger is hot, and I wasn't hot. I was calm. It was a decision. I looked at Tara with her easy, store-bought life. I looked at my son, who was choosing her contempt over my love. And I thought about that word, work. You're right, Tara, I thought to myself. It is a lot of work, an awful lot of work. And for the very first time in my life, I asked myself, why am I doing it? I'm doing it for them, but they don't want it. They don't respect it. So why am I giving it to them? If my work is such a burden, then I should stop. I should take that burden away from them. If they want easy, I can give them easy. If they want lighter, I can give them lighter. If they want store-bought, well, I can give them store-bought. I felt a little smile. A real one. It was just for me. I stood up from the table. Every eye was on me. More coffee, anyone? I asked. My voice was perfectly normal. Cheerful, even. They all just stared at me. But in my head, I was already a year in the future. I was planning. I was planning next Christmas. A year. I let a whole year go by. I didn't say another word about it. Not to Eliza, not to Max, and certainly not to Eddie. I let that cold, clear decision I made at the Christmas table just sit. I let it settle in me like a stone at the bottom of a lake. It wasn't a hot, angry feeling. It was just a fact. I wasn't going to do it anymore. The year passed. We had birthdays. We had Easter. I hosted, but I kept it simple. Salads, a nice ham. Everyone was busy. No one seemed to notice. Then November came, and the calls started. Eliza called first. Mom, just booking my flight for Christmas. Can't wait for your stuffing. Max called a week later. Hey, Mom, just checking in. I've already got a spot cleared in my freezer for the leftover pie I'm planning to steal. Even Eddie called. Hey, Mom, Tara's wondering what time to come over on Christmas Day. The kids are excited. And I smiled. I said, wonderful, dear. We'll see you then. I was pleasant. I was kind. I was peaceful. This Christmas Eve, for the first time in 35 years, my kitchen was dark. My oven was cold. I didn't peel a single potato. I didn't roll out any dough. I didn't get up at dawn to stuff a turkey. I slept in. I had a long, hot bath. I sat by my window, watched the sun set over Scottsdale, and I read a book. My back didn't ache. My hands weren't covered in flour. I was, as Tara would say, having a lighter day. Christmas morning, I got up, had my coffee, and I put on my nice red sweater. Around 3 o'clock, I went to my refrigerator. I took out a few large aluminum foil trays. I turned on the oven, not to roast, just to warm. Eliza and Max arrived first. They walked in the door, and I saw them both pause. They sniffed the air. Mom, Eliza said, looking around. She looked confused. Are you okay? Did something happen? I'm wonderful, dear. Merry Christmas, I said, giving her a hug. It's just, Max said, coming up to kiss my cheek. It doesn't, smell like Christmas. It doesn't smell like your house at Christmas. I just smiled at him. Oh, I'm trying something new this year, honey. A more relaxed approach. They looked at each other. They knew something was off, but I'm their mother. They trust me. So they just nodded and went to pour themselves a drink, looking a little lost. Then, at 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I felt it, that little spark. Not anger, not nerves. It was anticipation. I opened the door. There they were, Eddie, Tara, and the grandkids. Merry Christmas, Mom. Eddie said, Merry Christmas, Agnes. Tara chimed in, bright as a button, and in her hands, she was holding it, the square, white box from the grocery store. I brought my cheesecake, she announced, as if she was presenting the queen with a crown. I looked at that $8.99 price sticker still on it box, and for the first time, I felt a genuine, warm smile for it. It was the star of the show. Oh, Tara, I said, and my voice was calm and sweet. How wonderful. You are perfectly on theme. She paused. I saw a flicker of confusion. Theme. Yes, I said, taking her coat. I was so inspired by what you said last year. You were so right. I walked toward my dining room. They all followed. Eliza and Max were standing there, waiting. Tara, I said, stopping at the head of the table. You said that homemade food is just so much work. I said the words, the exact words. I saw Eddie flinch. He remembered. And you were right, I said, turning to her. It is. It's an awful lot of work, and people just want something lighter. I gestured to the dining room table. So this year, I said, my voice clear and pleasant, I decided to follow your lead. This Christmas, everything on the table is store-bought, just like your cheesecake. Silence. Absolute, total stunned silence. Eliza's jaw dropped. I mean, it literally fell open. Max looked at the table, and then at me, and then at Tara, and I could see his mind just whirring. Eddie looked pale. He was staring at the food on the table as if it was a ghost. And the food. Oh, the food. The turkey wasn't in my big, blue roasting pan. It was a pre-cooked, perfectly round, unnaturally smooth turkey breast from the supermarket deli, sitting in a foil tray. The mashed potatoes were in a plastic tub. They were the instant kind. I just added water and microwaved them. The stuffing was a brown, solid brick I'd bought from the freezer aisle. The green beans were from a can sitting in a bowl, a little gray. The cranberry sauce was still in the shape of the can it came out of. And the rolls were in the little plastic bag they sell at the checkout. It was a feast of convenience. But Tara's face was a picture. She was looking at her $8.99 cheesecake, which she had just proudly set on my counter. And then she was looking at my table, and I could see the exact moment it hit her. Her little contribution, it wasn't a lighter, modern alternative anymore. It was just one more piece of cheap, easy food on a table full of it. It wasn't special. It wasn't a help. It was just part of the theme. She was humiliated. Her face went bright red. She had been exposed, not by me yelling, but by me agreeing with her. And me, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel spiteful. I felt calm. I felt a little bit of a giggle way down deep. I looked at the confused, disappointed, shocked faces of my family, and I smiled just a little to myself. Well, I said cheerfully, pulling out my own chair, "Shall we eat? Don't let it get cold." Okay, she did it. Can you believe the look on their faces? That table full of instant potatoes and canned beans is the most satisfying thing I've seen all year. Are you on Team Agnes? If you're rooting for her, drop a "Go Agnes" in the comments. The real fireworks are about to start, and you won't want to miss Tara's reaction. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button right now so you don't miss a minute. Nobody moved. It was like a frozen picture. We were all just sitting there, staring at this monument to convenience I had built on the dining room table. Eliza, God bless her, is always the diplomat. She cleared her throat, picked up her fork, and took a tiny bite of the instant potatoes. I saw her face flicker. She was trying so hard. "Well, Mom," she said, her voice sounding a little too bright, it's certainly efficient. Max wasn't even trying. He just sat there, his arms crossed, staring at the foil tray of dry turkey as if it had personally offended him. And I suppose it had. Eddie wouldn't look at me. He was just staring at his empty plate. And Tara was looking at me. Her face was no longer red. It was a pale, tight mask of pure, cold fury. She knew exactly what I had done. She knew I had taken her words and built a prison out of them. The silence in that room was terrible. It was worse than yelling. It was the loudest, most awful quiet I have ever heard. It was just the scrape of Eliza's fork on her plate. Scrape, scrape. I took a bite of the turkey. It was like chewing cardboard. I took a sip of my water. I was perfectly calm. I was emotionless. I was just a host watching her party. Finally, Max couldn't take it anymore. He put his fork and knife down with a clink that made everyone jump. "Mom," he said. His voice wasn't angry. It was just baffled. "What is this? I mean, really, what's going on?" Eliza chimed in. her voice full of a worried, desperate concern. Mom, are you sick? Is that it? Did something happen? You could have told us. We would have understood. We could have. I don't know, we could have ordered pizza. They were trying to find a reason. They were trying to find an excuse for me. They were giving me an out. They wanted me to say, "Oh, you're right. I'm ill. I just couldn't manage it this year." I saw Eddie look up at me, his eyes full of hope. Oh, he desperately wanted me to take that excuse. If I was sick, then he wasn't the bad guy. If I was sick, then he wasn't the one who had let his mother be insulted at her own table. I looked at my children, Eliza and Max, and I felt a wave of love for them. They were good kids. "No, sweetheart," I said, my voice calm and even. "I'm not sick. I'm actually feeling wonderful, very rested." And then I turned my head just a little to look at Tara. I'm just following Tara's philosophy. I said, the table went still. Not a person breathed. Tara's philosophy? Max repeated, as if he'd never heard the word. "Yes," I said. I looked back at Max, but I was speaking to the whole room. Tara was so right last year. She made a very good point. She said that homemade food is just, and I made sure to use her exact tone, so much work. I saw Eddie flinch. I saw Tara's eyes narrow. "It's a burden, all that work." I continued, my voice still perfectly pleasant. "And people just want lighter things. So, I decided, why am I making all this heavy food that's so much trouble? Why am I being so old-fashioned? Tara's right. This is the modern way. It's easier for everyone. It's light." I smiled at her. "Store-bought is fine, right, Tara? I'm just agreeing with you." That's when the shock finally cracked, and the anger came pouring out. Tara's face, which had been so pale, went bright, blotchy red. She turned to Eddie, and her voice was a low, sharp hiss that everyone at the table could hear. "Are you going to let her do this? Are you just going to sit there?" Eddie just sank. He looked at his plate. He looked at his wife. He looked at me. He was a rabbit in a trap. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He was useless. And his silence, that made Tara even angums. She had no one on her side. She was exposed. She scraped her chair back, the noise horrible on the wooden floor, and she stood up. I cannot believe you," she said, her voice shaking. Eliza, the peacemaker, said, "Tara, you are the one who said." I was making an observation. Tara snapped, her voice breaking. I wasn't attacking her. My God, this is what she does. She's so dramatic. She has to make everything about her. I was dramatic. Me, the woman who had said nothing for 4 years. "Tara, maybe you should just sit down," Max said, his voice low and warning. "No, I will not sit down. This is a childish, passive-aggressive attack," she spat. "Is it?" I asked. I hadn't raised my voice. It was just a simple question. Is it an attack, Tara? Or is it just agreement? You said you wanted store-bought. You got store-bought. You said you wanted less work. You got less work. It seems to me you got exactly what you asked for. The only thing missing is your cheesecake. Her mouth opened, and then it snapped shut. She had no answer. She looked at me with just pure hatred. She was cornered, and she was lashing out. "You're just a bitter old woman," she hissed. Eliza and Max both gasped. Bitter. I had given this family 35 years of my love, my time, my work, and because I finally stopped, I was bitter. Tara turned, grabbed her purse from the back of the chair, and then she turned to her husband. "Eddie, we're leaving." Eddie looked at me, his face just wrecked. He was torn. "Eddie." Now, Tara commanded. He stood up, slowly. He didn't look at me. He just stood up. Tara marched to the kitchen counter. grabbed her $8.99 cheesecake box, and headed for the door. "This is a horrible thing to do, Agnes," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "You have ruined Christmas, just to be difficult." And then she and Eddie were gone. The front door slammed shut, and I was left in the silence with my 2 children and a table full of cold, store-bought food. The slam of that door, it echoed in the dining room. It was just the 3 of us, me, Eliza, and Max. We stood there in the quiet looking at the leftovers, the cold, congealed potatoes, the sad gray beans, the dry turkey. Eliza was the first to move. She just walked over to me and wrapped me in a hug, a real, strong hug. "Mom," she whispered in my ear, and her voice was shaking with anger. "I am so sorry. She is just an awful person." Max came over, and he put his arms around both of us. "I can't believe he left," he said, and his voice was low and dark. "I can't believe he let her speak to you that way. And then he just left with her." I leaned into my children. I let them hold me up for a second. Then I pulled back. I smoothed my sweater. "Well," I said, "that's that." "What do you mean, that's that?" Max said, his hands clenching. "I'm going to call him. I'm going to go over there." "No," I said, and I said it with a firmness that stopped him cold. "No, you are not. This is not for you to fix, Max. This is not for anyone to fix. This is just what happened. Eddie made his choice. He has been making it for 4 years. Today, he just made it louder." I looked at the table, this sad, beige, processed table. "All right," I said, and my voice was back. It was normal. "Who wants to help me clean up this disaster? And then I am going to make us a real meal. I still have eggs. I still have flour. I am not letting my Christmas end on a can of cranberry sauce." And that's what we did. The 3 of us. We scraped every bit of that store-bought food into the garbage bag. Every last bit. It was a funeral. We were burying Tara's philosophy. Eliza put on the Christmas music, low. Max opened another bottle of wine. And I went to my pantry. I got out the flour, the sugar, the butter. I made us a big, beautiful pan of scrambled eggs, and I baked a batch of my mother's pop-up biscuits from scratch. At 9 o'clock at night, the 3 of us sat at my kitchen table eating hot biscuits with butter and jam, and we laughed. We were sad, but we were together. Eliza and Max left the next morning. They had to get back. They hugged me extra tight. "Are you going to be okay, Mom?" Eliza asked, her eyes searching mine. "I am more okay than I've been in years, sweetheart." I told her, and I meant it. Then they were gone. The house was quiet, too quiet. The 26th of December. It's always a strange day. The leftovers day. The day after the storm. I sat with my coffee. The house was clean. There was no turkey carcass to pick at, no leftover pie to eat for breakfast. There was just me, and I let myself wonder. I wondered what that car ride home was like for them. I pictured Tara in the passenger seat, just vibrating with rage, ranting. I told you she was a bitter, difficult woman. I told you, and you just sat there. You let her humiliate me. You let her ruin Christmas. We are never going back. Eddie, you hear me? Never. And I pictured my son, Eddie, gripping the steering wheel, his knuckles white, just silent, taking it. Because what else could he do? What could he possibly say? Could he say, "Well, Tara, you did call my mother's love too much work"? Could he say, "Well, Tara, you did call her a bitter old woman to her face"? Could he say, "Well, Tara, you have been bringing that same sad frozen cheesecake to her house for 4 years, and you never once offered to help her peel a potato"? He couldn't say any of that, because he would be admitting that he was the one who let it happen. He would be admitting that he was weak, that he had failed. So I'm sure he just sat there, and he just drove, and he just took it. I bet they went to bed in silence, a cold, angry silence. And I bet Eddie lay there, in the dark, staring at the ceiling. And I bet in that darkness the reality finally hit him, the reality of my absence from that Christmas table. It wasn't just about the food. It was that I wasn't there. My love wasn't on the table. My work wasn't on the table. He had sat at a table where his mother had been erased. And then he had walked out on the mother he had helped to erase. He must have finally understood. He must have finally realized what he had done. He had chosen peace, that easy, quiet life with Tara, over respect for his own mother. He hadn't just disrespected me. He had disrespected his own childhood. He had disrespected his grandmother's pies and his grandfather's stuffing. He had let his whole heritage be traded for an $8.99 cheesecake. And he was the only one who could have stopped it. The phone rang. It was so quiet in the house, the sound of it made me jump. I looked at it. I knew who it was. My heart, it didn't pound. It just waited. I picked up the receiver. Hello. A pause. A long, long pause. I could just hear breathing. And then a voice. It was so small. It wasn't the voice of my 40-year-old son, the successful man. It was the voice of a little boy who had been caught. Mom. I waited. Mom, it's me. I know who it is, Eddie. I said. My voice was just quiet. I wasn't going to help him. I wasn't going to make this easy. I heard him take a shaky breath, like he was trying to hold it together. Mom, can we talk? His voice was hesitant. It was thin. Just me, he said, rushing the words out. Not Tara. Just me. Please. Can I come over? Please. There it was. The guilt. The reckoning. He wasn't calling to yell. He wasn't calling to defend his wife. He was calling to confess. I looked at the empty chair across from me. Yes, Eddie, I said, you can come over. Wow, that phone call. Mom, can we talk? Just hearing the hesitation in his voice, it gives me chills. Have you ever been in that spot? That terrible, quiet moment after the big fight when you're just waiting for the apology, waiting for the reckoning. It's the hardest part, isn't it? Let me know your thoughts on this. What do you think Eddie is going to say? I hung up the phone and sat there in the quiet of my kitchen, and I waited. I didn't know what I was feeling. It wasn't victory. It wasn't happiness. It was just heavy, quiet, waiting feeling. 20 minutes later, his car pulled into the driveway. I watched him walk up the path. He didn't look at the house. He just walked, his head down, like a man walking into a storm. I opened the door before he could knock. He was standing there, and he looked terrible. He looked like he hadn't slept, not just last night, but in years. His eyes were red. He was still wearing the same clothes from Christmas Day, just rumpled, defeated. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me, and his face was the face of a little boy who had broken his mother's favorite vase and didn't know how to fix it. Hello, Eddie, I said. Hi, Mom. I stepped aside. Come in. He walked past me. He didn't go to the living room. He walked straight into the kitchen, and he sat down at the table, the same table where Eliza and Max and I had eaten our biscuits just the night before. I poured 2 cups of coffee. I didn't ask him if he wanted any. I just did it. I put a cup in front of him. He just stared into it. I sat down opposite him, and I waited. This was his. He had to be the one. He cleared his throat. He tried to speak, and his voice just broke. He put his face in his hands. Mom, he started, his voice muffled. I don't know what to say. Then just say that. Eddie, I said. My voice wasn't hard. It wasn't soft. It was just clear. He took his hands away from his face, and his eyes were full of tears. My son, my 40-year-old son, was crying at my kitchen table. I'm sorry, he whispered. Oh, God, Mom. I am so sorry. What are you sorry for, Eddie? He looked up at me, surprised. He wanted me to just say, it's okay, I forgive you. He wanted the easy way out. What do you mean? What exactly are you sorry for? I asked. I needed to hear it. I needed to know he knew. He took a long, shaky breath. I'm sorry I let her, he said, his voice small. I'm sorry I let her talk to you like that. I'm sorry I didn't see it. I did see it. I just didn't do anything. He looked down at his hands. For years. It wasn't just this. It was the cheesecake. It was all of it. I just wanted to keep the peace. Keep the peace. I said. I couldn't help it. A little sad laugh came out. Oh, Eddie, that wasn't peace. That was just you being quiet while she disrespected me. In my own home. Year after year after year. I know, he said, and his voice cracked. I know. You don't think I know that? I've been a coward, Mom. A total, complete coward. I've been hiding. I thought if I just ignored it, it would go away. That you would just take it. He looked right at me. You've always just taken it, Mom. You've always been the one to smooth things over, to make it better. And I just let you. I let you take it because it was easier than me being a husband and a son. There it was. The truth. The real, ugly, painful truth. And then yesterday, he said, when she said that awful word, I just sat there. Mom, I left with her. I left you here with that table. I walked out on you. He was crying for real now. Just quiet tears running down his face. I drove away, and I've never hated myself more, Mom. I sat there, and I watched my son, and the anger, it was just gone. I wasn't cold anymore. I was just sad. I was sad for him. I hear you, Eddie, I said. He looked up, his face full of hope. But I have to ask you, Eddie, what about Tara? I said, what about the woman who said those things? You're here, but she's the one who called me a bitter old woman. He winced. He nodded. He wiped his face with a napkin. I know, he said. I've been trying to figure that out. All night. He took a deep breath. That's why I'm here. I did something. Before I came. I just waited. I called Eliza. And I called Max. This morning. Both of them. My heart, it warmed. I told them. I told them everything. I told them what Tara said. I told them what I did. That I just sat there. And that I left. And what did they say? I asked. He let out a weak, broken laugh. Max said a lot of things. Things I deserved to hear. He said I was spineless. And he was right. And then Eliza was just cold. She was so clear. She just said, Eddie, this isn't about a cheesecake. This is about you for 4 years watching your wife bully our mother. And it's done. It's over. The sibling summit. They had my back. My children. They had my back. So we have a plan, Eddie said, and he sat up a little straighter. He looked a little less broken, a little more resolved. I'm going home, and Eliza and Max are going to be on a video call. Tonight, the 4 of us, me, Tara, Eliza, and Max, and we are done. He was talking about his own wife. She has to hear it, he said, more to himself than to me. She has to hear it from all of us, that the way she has treated you, it's not going to happen again, ever, and that I am not going to let it happen again. He looked at me. She has to apologize, Mom. She has to understand what she did. Not just, I'm sorry. She has to get it. I didn't say anything for a long time. I just watched my son, the man who had been a boy, just finally growing up, The next day, my doorbell rang. I opened it. It was Tara. She was alone. She was not wearing her power suit. She was in just jeans and a sweater. She wasn't wearing any makeup. Her eyes were red and puffy. She looked small. "Agnes," she said. Her voice was just a whisper. "Can I come in? Please." I stepped aside. She walked into my kitchen. She sat down at the table, in the same chair Eddie had sat in. She just looked at her hands. "They told me," she said. "I just waited. Eddie and Eliza and Max. It was awful." She took a shaky breath. "I didn't get it, Agnes. I'm a busy person. I work. I don't do all this. The baking, the work." She said the word work. "But this time it sounded different. And when I saw you, I guess I felt judged," she whispered. "I felt like you were better than me because you did all this perfect stuff. And I just buy things. And I felt small. And so I made you small." It was the most honest thing she had ever said. "I never asked you to bake, Tara," I said, my voice quiet. "I never judged you. I just wanted a little respect. For my work. For my mother's pies." "I know," she said, and a tear dropped onto the table. "I know. Eddie told me about the pies. About your mother. About your grandmother. I just called them heavy. I called your love too much work. And then I called you that awful name." She looked up at me, and her face was just, it was just broken. "I'm so sorry, Agnes," she whispered. "Not just I'm sorry. I am ashamed. I am so ashamed. I made it cheap. All of it. I took your history, and I made it cheap." She just sat there, crying, and I looked at her, my daughter-in-law, and I just reached across the table, and I put my hand on top of hers. She flinched when my hand touched hers. I don't think she was expecting it. She looked up at me, her eyes just swimming in this awful soup of shame and exhaustion. I didn't say, "It's okay." I didn't say, "I forgive you," because it wasn't okay. And forgiveness, well, that's a long, slow road. I just held her gaze, and my hand just rested on hers. It wasn't a hand of forgiveness. It was just a hand that said, "I am here. I have heard you. I am not like you. I am not a person who hits back." She couldn't hold my gaze. She looked down. She pulled her hand back, very slowly. She didn't stay long after that. What else was there to say? She was a woman who had been completely and totally unraveled. She had built her life on being the smart, modern, busy one who didn't have time for heavy old traditions. And in one night, my other children, Eliza and Max, and her own husband, they had held up a mirror. They had shown her that her modern life, her easy way, it looked an awful lot like cruelty, like contempt. She left, quietly. She was a different woman than the one who had slammed my door on Christmas Day, full of rage and righteousness. She was a woman who had lost. I closed the door behind her, and I walked back to my kitchen, my quiet kitchen. I sat down at my table, in the same chair I had been in for all of this. I poured myself a cup of coffee, even though it was the afternoon. And I reflected. I did feel vindicated. That's the word, isn't it? I felt like the world was back on its hinges. But the strange thing, the thing I've been thinking about over and over, the apology wasn't the victory. Tara's tears, Eddie's guilt, that wasn't the victory. That was just the fallout. That was the result. The real victory that had already happened, the real victory happened on Christmas Day at 4 o'clock when I stood at the head of my dining room table and I unveiled my feast of instant potatoes. The victory was the decision I made a year ago. The victory was the act. For 35 years, I had been a giver. I gave my love. I gave my time. I gave my work, and I thought that was enough. I thought that the love was its own protection, but it wasn't. My work, it was my love made visible. My love in the form of a pie crust. My love in the form of a perfectly roasted turkey. And when she called my work heavy and too much, she was calling my love a burden. And my son let her. That was the moment I learned that love is not enough. Love has to have a fence. It has to have a boundary. Tara called my store-bought meal a passive-aggressive attack. She was wrong. It wasn't an attack. It was a boundary. It was a fence. It was the first time in my 35 years of being a mother and a mother-in-law that I had ever built a fence. And my fence was made of instant potatoes and canned green beans. I wasn't trying to change Tara. I've learned you can't change people. Lord knows you can't. I was protecting myself. I was protecting my mother's memory. I was protecting my love. My store-bought meal wasn't a weapon. It was a shield. It was me standing up and saying, this is my house. This is my tradition. This is my love. And you do not get to call it heavy. You do not get to call it work. You do not get to call me bitter for pouring my heart out just because your heart is empty. I was drawing a line, a big, bright, clear line on the floor. And I was saying, you can come this far, but no further. And what happened? They didn't just hit the boundary. They crashed into it. The whole family crashed into it. And in the crash, they were forced to see it. Forced to see me. Tara's apology. It wasn't the cure. It was just the symptom. The symptom that the cure was working. The cure was the boundary. Eddie called me later that day, after Tara had left. He was quiet. He just said, so she came? Yes, I said. And she apologized, I said. I heard him let out a breath so big, it was like he'd been holding it for a year. Oh, thank God. There was a long pause. Mom, he said, I'm here, Eddie. She really gets it, Mom. She's a wreck, but she gets it. That's good, I said. And Mom, he said, his voice hesitant. She wants to try to host next Christmas. My heart didn't leap. It didn't sink. It just waited. She can't do what you do, but wants to try. And she wants to know if you'd be willing to teach her how to make your mother's pies. And there it was, the power shift, the whole world tilting back. It wasn't me begging for them to see my legacy. It was her asking to be part of it. I thought about it. I really did. I thought about her in my kitchen. Her with her busy, modern hands touching my mother's rolling pin. And I thought about my answer. Well, Eddie, I said, you can tell her I'll think about it. He paused. You'll think about it. Yes, I said. It's a lot of work, you know. And I heard him on the other end of the phone. My son. He laughed. It was a small, broken, relieved little laugh. But it was a start. I sat there after I hung up, and I looked at my hands, my 68-year-old hands. I had done it. I had stood up for myself. I had demanded respect. I had taught my family a lesson, not just about appreciation, not just about tradition. I had taught them about boundaries. And in all of this, I learned something, too. The real victory, it wasn't seeing Tara cry. It wasn't hearing Eddie apologize. The real victory was realizing that I was worth protecting. Sometimes it's not about fighting for what you want. It's about protecting the parts of you that no one can take away. And for me, that's the love I put into everything I make. So I'm sitting here in my quiet kitchen, and that's my story, the Great Cheesecake War of Christmas, as my son Max calls it now. It sounds funny when you say it like that, but it wasn't funny, was it? When it was happening, it was awful, and it was necessary. It's had me thinking a lot. Abu us women, especially women. Well, women like me, women of a certain age, the ones who have been the givers, the smoothers, the peacekeepers. We're the ones who take it. We take the thoughtless comment. We take the $8.99 cheesecake. We take the invisibility. We smile. We say, "It's lovely, dear." We hold our tongues. For years, decades even, because we're told that's what love is. That's what being a good mother is. You don't make waves. You just keep the peace, like my Eddie was trying to do. But here's the question I've been turning over and over in my mind. The question I want to ask you, is that love? Or is it just letting yourself be erased? Every time I smiled at that box, I said, "It's fine, dear." I was letting it happen. I was teaching them that it was okay to treat me like that. I was teaching my own son that I didn't need to be defended. I had to make a choice. I think we all come to this choice sooner or later. I could keep pretending. I could keep smiling at that frozen box and let that little cold stone of resentment just grow in my heart year after year until I became what she called me, a bitter old woman. Because that's what happens, isn't it? When you swallow your own voice for too long, you get poisoned by it. Or I could stop. I could build that fence. I could serve the instant potatoes. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, to sit there on Christmas Day and watch my family's confusion and their disappointment. But I knew if I baked that pie one more time, if I let her win, that I would just break and disappear. So I'm asking you, what would you have done? Am I the villain here? Did I ruin Christmas? Like Tara said, was I passive-aggressive? Or was I just a woman who had finally had enough? I'd really love to hear your thoughts. I'm just one woman in one kitchen in Scottsdale, but I know I'm not the only one. I know there are thousands of you out there who have a cheesecake story, a potato salad story, a who carves the turkey story, a story about being the one who just does everything and feels invisible. So please, tell me yours. Go down to the comments section. Let's talk. Let's share. Let's let each other know we're not alone. And that was her victory. Not the apology, but the boundary. So what do you think? Was Agnes's store-bought protest a brilliant, strong move to protect her legacy? Or was it just passive-aggressive and childish like Tara said? What would you have done in her place? Let's discuss it in the comments below. And if this story hit home for you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. We have a brand new story waiting for you right now, and it's a wild one. Click here to watch what happened when my best friend of 40 years tried to steal my prize-winning rose recipe.